Here we're looking at the contribution patterns of 12 sprint intervals, each with 90 seconds rest in between. We're looking to better understand levels of fatigue and inefficiency with this athlete and to try to identify when and why that might be taking place. So to do this, we are going to ask ourselves two questions that we're going to try to utilize the data to help us answer. Number one being, do we think that 12 intervals are the right number to run for this athlete? And then if we do deem that to be true, do we believe that 90-second intervals are the right amount of time to try to optimize for recovery in between each one? So what we're looking at here, if you look over on the right-hand side, you'll see each of our muscle groups attached here with a color. Those colors are going to correspond over on the bar graph. So take this bar over on the far left. This is representative of sprint number one. The yellow is representative of the total amount of stress coming from the glute. The pink is representative of the total amount of stress coming from the hamstring. These two colors above are representative of the stress coming from our two quad sensors. And then over on the left-hand side here, what you'll see is 0 to 100. So this is based off of percentage of work, right? So in this first sprint, we're looking at about 60% of our total workload coming from our glutes, with about 25% in the pink there coming from the hamstring right above it. So we're looking at posterior chain recruitment, but specifically to help answer our questions, we're going to look to identify the trends in glute to ham work ratio that will help provide us some of these answers. So what we can see here in our first three sets that we're looking, we're seeing some pretty high glute contribution, somewhere between about 50 and 60%. That would be in sets 1 through 3. But immediately after that, we're seeing a pretty steady decline all the way to the end down here at set number 12 in the amount of glute contribution that we're getting. But while this is taking place, we're also seeing a heavy increase in the amount of hamstring stress taking place as well. So as we can see here in set 6 through 8, we're seeing somewhere between about 30 and 40% glute contribution, but we're seeing an increase in hamstring. And then with that steady decline all the way in sets 10 through 12, 20 to 25% glute contribution, more stress coming from the hamstring as well. So we take a look at this data and we're saying, okay, awesome. What does this really mean for us? But from this data, we can specifically start to identify where the athlete is incurring fatigue, but also how this fatigue is affecting their movement pattern, right? So we're seeing this decline and we're seeing this fatigue start to kick in, but we're also seeing how it's affecting them and how this movement pattern is now changing for them to be able to complete the exact same movement. So what we're looking at is, okay, this athlete is trying to complete a power movement, and we're getting really good glute contribution here in the beginning, a power muscle. But as the athlete is becoming less efficient, those hamstrings are kicking in, and we're now starting to use more of a speed muscle, our hamstrings, to complete this movement. That efficiency can be shown here in the back with our intensity metric here. So that's this blue bar that you're seeing in the back in the background. So as you can see in the beginning, there's a direct correlation here with a lower intensity compared with how much glute contribution that we're getting. But as the athlete is increasing in intervals here, we're getting it's requiring the athlete a lot more work to complete the exact same movement, which is making them a lot less efficient there. So from this, there's a few different things that we can take away, and a couple of different decisions that we as a coach can make. One being that, okay, these 12 intervals may have been excessive for this athlete, and maybe we look at, okay, how can we adjust this number, right? If this athlete's efficiency, we believe, started to dive off around interval number 8, well, that may be a better number for this particular athlete. If that's not necessarily an option, as it may not be for a lot of programs, what we can actually do, though, is start to look at, okay, do we believe that these 90-second intervals, these 90-second rest intervals are optimal for this athlete? There may be an adjustment that we can make there, perhaps upping it to 120 seconds, 2 minutes, to see if that allows our athlete to recover to be a little bit more efficient with each interval that they're running.